goody, here it comes.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show.
You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
Oh my God, don't stop now!
With your hosts, Brian, John, and Elaine.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show, the madhouse for film freaks and film fans of all types. I'm your host, Brian Kyneton, and unfortunately, John and Elaine are not joined with me today, but I've got another featured interview lined up for you all. It is with a great friend of mine, director Steve Rudzinski, someone who I consider one of the best genre-bending filmmakers out there, with movies like Everyone Must Die, Captain Z, and the Terror of the Leviathan, Super Task Force 1, and his newest film currently in post-production, CarousHELL. Without further ado, here is Steve Rudzinski of Silver Spotlight Films. Welcome, listeners, to our featured interview for this week. I've got an old friend of mine on the Skype line today, so to speak, Steve Rudzinski of Silver Spotlight Pictures. Am I saying that right?
Silver Spotlight Films, but
okay.
So as long as you say Silver Spotlight,
Silver
that's what
Spotlight. Matters. And also Dark Mullet. Are you still under that as well?
Oh, no, that died with the mullet itself.
Fair enough.
I was Dark Mullet Cinema for a long time, but then when I lost the mullet, I felt that it was time to move on. So then I named myself Central Keystone Pictures.
I noticed that.
Because I'm a big fan of The Flash, so to me it was an Easter egg of Central City and Keystone City, the Twin Cities. But everyone just kept thinking that I was referencing Pennsylvania, so I changed it to Silver Spotlight, because I'm in the Silver Spotlight.
There you go. Awesome. Well, welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show. I don't know if you've heard any of the episodes.
I've heard a couple, but it's been a while.
Cool. What do you think of the show so far? Pretty good?
I think it's pretty solid. I like what you're doing with it. I really do.
Good. So, we've known each other for a couple of years. I remember watching your movies back when you did Everyone Must Die.
Yeah, 2012.
That was 2012. So, yeah, it's been about 4 years, and I've enjoyed seeing you grow as a filmmaker. Like, seeing from one movie to the next just get better and better. It's really been fun to watch. So, do you want to talk about how you got started in filmmaking?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you very much. That's very humbling. I appreciate that. You know, as a filmmaker yourself, to watch all of my schlock.
It's not schlock.
And actually say it's gotten better.
It's not schlock.
But yeah, sure. Well, I kind of decided I wanted to be a director at around 12 years old because I saw Army of Darkness on the Sci-Fi Channel, and my fate was sealed. That's what did me in.
Usually it does.
Yeah, absolutely. I always wanted to be creative, but Army of Darkness is what pushed me into the filmmaking part of it, of creativity. So from there on, I kept, coming up with random film ideas. I wrote a few screenplays in high school, which were terrible, but they were completed 90-page screenplays, which is more than half the guys in L.A. have done.
Right.
At 16, I tried to put together a feature film with a buddy, which was horrible and awful. We won't even say the name of it.
What's the name of it?
No.
We've all got one movie. Okay, you know that, right?
Yeah, well, this one...
We all have the Picture of Dorian Gray movie.
I have a couple of those. I got a couple Dorian Grays keeping me immortal. That's why it looks so good.
There you go.
Okay, at 16, I made Ku Klux Klan versus neo-Nazis.
Can people still watch that, by the way?
No. There's a few DVDs left that I take to just conventions, but when those are gone, it's gone forever.
Oh, jeez.
And the only reason why I still have those copies for sale is because I bought so many originally that I'm just like, well, fuck it, these are $10 a pop. Why throw them away? Eventually, I'll get the money. But still, while it was terrible in retrospect and full of horrible 16-year-old high school humor, I made and completed a fucking feature. I learned from that, and I kept learning. I tried doing another feature called, Legends. That was also horrible. But that was an evolution in actual storytelling instead of just random kids cracking jokes and improvising the whole time. It was an actual story, just not a good one. After that, I did the Wolfster double feature, which, while dated, I feel holds up decently.
It definitely does.
I know a lot of people that still think it's funny, that still asked me about Wolfster, which is why he made a slight comeback, which I'll get into in a minute here. But that one pushed me in the direction of what my tone was, because that was the movie that I felt really comfortable making releasing and showing, and that's when I realized I was much more humor. I was much more humor-based. I'm not a serious storyteller, and that's not to knock serious storytelling or dramas or, shit-your-pants sort of horror, but that's not my bag when it comes to what I make. So I definitely have kept all my films fun. Even when they have to get serious as a whole, my films from there on out were fun.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's one of the things that I think you stand out with more than every other indie horror filmmaker that's in the Pittsburgh area, and then just around the convention circuit is you do put humor in it, and you've honed the way to go ahead and have it flow really well. I think comedy is by far the hardest thing to get right. It
very much can be, because it's so hit and miss.
And it's subjective. What's
Yes.
funny to one person might not be funny to somebody else, and they might not get the joke. Or, because, comedy is one of those things where, you're playing off of life experiences. And if, shared life experiences, and if people just don't share the same life experience you have, they're not going to get the joke. So, you found a way to mix that in really well with horror. And it doesn't come off as overly campy. It comes off as, in my opinion, very intelligent comedy.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Among a lot of the reviews that I've gotten over the years, because I've gotten fucking countless. Wait, Can I say fuck?
Oh yeah, I don't. We swear up and down.
Fuck yeah. Even like amongst a lot of the bad reviews that I've gotten, but just the general consistent message that I get from all the reviews that I've gotten for past 5 years has been, it's a good script. And that means a lot to me. Like, a lot of people really appreciate my scripts. They appreciate the characters that I write, the plots. One big weakness in indie horror that I've noticed, and my one friend Bill Murphy and I have talked about it a few times, or I should say he approached me about it and brought it up to me, which is kind of how I realized it, is that a lot of indie horror has this problem where they make everyone a fucking asshole. Mm-hmm. And you just don't care. You don't care. Like, you don't care about the characters, but the villain also is not charismatic, so you also don't care about the killer. It's just a bunch of dickwads that you're waiting to die, but not in the fun Looney Tunes way. Like, not the fun to hate but hilarious asshole in a horror movie. Just everyone's a scumbag that you don't care about.
I think that kind of speaks to the era that these filmmakers grow up in. You look at like the Freddy Krueger movies and the Friday the 13th movies and those types of movies. Those movies, you didn't really give two shits if those characters died. They literally were lambs to the slaughter.
I disagree completely.
Really?
Yeah, I think more so Nightmare. I'll start off by saying, like, you're mostly right about Friday the 13th, but Friday the 13th still has a few characters that you care about. And then the guys that are super dickwads are to a lampoon degree where you root for their death instead of being completely neutral, which is what I have a problem with in indie horror. And in the Nightmare series, to me, I love all of the kids just as much as I love Freddy. So for me, it's a consistent battle watching those films of who I'm rooting for.
Oh, I'm always Team Freddy.
I generally am Team Freddy, but I really like the way the kids are written, especially, like you look at 3 and 4, especially, all of those kids.
3 especially is the strongest when it comes to caring about the characters. I always sympathize with them. 4, not so much. I like 4 because you have Alice, who's just out of her fucking game. You have her brother, who's trying his best to be supportive while he doesn't believe the Freddy shit. Right.
You have Dan, who in a indie horror movie would be this douchebag jock, but he's actually a pretty good guy.
He is.
He's just out of Alice's league. You have Alice's nerd friend, who is the most stereotypical character, but is still adorable, and that's a credit more so to the actress than the script. I really like all the characters.
Yeah, but 3's got the Wizard Master guy in it. That right there, you got me sold. You've also got Joey, who's deaf, but
my dream power is the ability to scream and destroy mirrors when mirrors are a threat. It'll be useful, trust me, guys.
It really will. It really will. And then you've got was it Taryn or Taryn?
Taryn, she's beautiful.
She's beautiful and bad. And there's so many those characters. Yeah, I root for them because the title is called Dream Warriors, and at the same time, it's like, you know, taking another element from Nightmare that maybe you only touched upon. You know, Nancy kind of touched upon pulling Freddy out of her dreams. She didn't necessarily use the dreams against Freddy. It wasn't until Dream Warriors that you kind of had that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what the 3 and 4 is absolutely a two-parter. Oh yeah. If you ask me. You know, aside from Tuesday Night taking over for Patricia Arquette. But it's absolutely a continued story because it starts off with the kids using their dreams against Freddy, but they got the issue of Freddy is the goddamn master of fucking dreams. Yeah, so what can you do? But then when Alice shows up and she's such a fucking loser that all she has is her dreams, that she's just as powerful as Freddy, it just takes a while for her to wake up about that.
And then
I think that's a really cool dynamic.
5 happened, and then we don't need to talk about that.
Oh, I don't like 5. I like 6, though. That's a black sheep that you aren't supposed to like, but 6 makes me laugh the whole time.
Buddy, I'm in the same boat as you. I love 6.
It's a Looney Tune, but it knows it's a Looney Tune.
It's that one and New Nightmare are my absolute favorites.
See, New Nightmare is actually my least favorite.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Because to me, there's parts of it that are really great, and the idea is really great. But the best parts of the movie is just when it's being a remake of the first movie, and there's a whole lot of nothing going on in between those parts to me. And again, there's stuff that's great in it. The score is top notch.
Oh yeah.
I really dig the trench coat look for Freddy. I like the concept of, you know, Freddy actually being a demon trying to get into the real world. I love simply imagining the concept that Freddy Krueger is fighting a Tyrannosaurus Rex every night, and I wish we saw that.
I mean, I wasn't really scared of Rex. I mean...
Yeah, in the real world, you don't know what the fuck Dream Rex was.
Dream Rex had like 6 heads.
No, Rex is Godzilla. Freddy turns into like a horror Ultraman. Fred Jaguar. There you go. Fred Jaguar. But there's concepts in New Nightmare that really work for me. But as a whole, it's just a boring film.
I guess for me, I love the fact that, and it's kind of ironic because I personally hate Scream. Mm-hmm. It's the one movie that I say kind of led to the downfall of horror films when it comes to studios. Mm-hmm. But I love the fact that New Nightmare takes place in our world, and you know, we kind of get to see these actors, and they're interacting with the characters that they got famous creating. Mm-hmm. And that's the part that I personally like about it. And it's one of those movies that prior to 1994, you know, the concept didn't exist.
No, absolutely, yeah.
And you could say that, and people have said in examining that movie, that was pretty much Wes Craven's experiment with doing a meta-type horror movie that's aware of itself.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of the sad part. It's like that movie led to Scream, and I can't stand that movie.
Well, that's Wes Craven for you.
I know.
Good concepts, but execution. He has a few diamonds in the rough, and I get crucified for saying that as both a horror fan and a horror director. But as much as I absolutely, without a doubt, respect Wes, not a big fan of Wes.
I'm a Clive Barker fan.
I like Clive way more.
He's
way more.
Yeah. You want to talk about story? You want to talk about character and just creating a universe? That's all Clive Barker. I love his writings. I love his movies.
Also, John Carpenter, I would rank.
John Carpenter, yeah, too. Although I'm not a fan of Halloween as much.
Best Halloween movie's Halloween 3, motherfucker. Season of the Witch, bitches, and I don't say that as a fucking joke. I love that movie. Get Michael Myers out the fucking way. Bring back the masks.
They should have just not called it Halloween. They should just call it Season of the Witch.
I feel bad because that was Carpenter's original idea. He wanted Halloween to be a fucking anthology series. But the studios made him do Michael Myers the second time, and that fucked that forever. If Season of the Witch was Halloween 2, it would have worked. But it wasn't Halloween 2.
Yeah. That's the problem right there. But so I got to ask, you mentioned, you know, that you have a penchant for comedy. How do you approach a movie and combine that comedy and horror together to work well with each other?
Well, for me, what I like most in horror films, and again, this is my subjective opinion, I prefer the horror that just has fun with itself. You know, I prefer the Nightmare on Elm Streets. I prefer the Friday the 13th. You know, the films and franchises that absolutely can have serious, horrific moments, but otherwise are just having fun with it. They're tossing kids on a chopping block and chopping them up with the purpose of you going like, ha 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 ha, fuck you, instead of, oh my god, no, what's happening? Yeah. That's what I prefer. I don't try to get into the psychological aspect of stuff. I don't try to get into the deep-rooted horrors. I just try to have fun with it. So I basically write characters that are insane and put them all together, but I work out why they're friends and why they know each other every time. Because that's another issue I have with horrors, when there's like a group of 5 people and it's just like, why the fuck are any of you hanging out with each other aside from you two fucking?
Right.
Like, if you look into the outlines for any of my films, is whether it's Slasher Hunter, Everyone Must Die, Captain Z, CarousHELL, there is like, I have a fucking chart of who is connected to who for every fucking movie, so that there's logical things that I could touch upon without spelling out the entire relationship in the film.
That's good, though. That's good character design right there. I mean, that's what it comes down to, is, mapping out things that maybe you don't necessarily have to go ahead and spoon-feed the audience, but you, as the director, know the motivation for why they do what they do.
Absolutely. And I don't go crazy with it. It's not like I write every character a 3-page backstory.
Right.
I leave that up to the actor. Honestly, I like to let the actors develop what their characters' histories are, so that can affect... Because I'm a very firm believer is that although I create these characters and I am their god, I also give these characters free will in the sense of these actors. And by the end of the film, the actors absolutely know their own characters better than I do.
That's the best kind of director there. I was actually having a conversation with a film student before I came on here, and I was talking about how the best kind of directors are the ones that let everyone do their jobs. Mm-hmm. So you let the cinematographer, who is the camera junkie, do their job. You let the sound guy do their job. You let the actors, especially, come to the conclusion of their character on their own. You can move them here or there and say, here's kind of, what I'm going for, here's why you'd be doing what, but ultimately, you want the actors to have the freedom to develop the character that they see.
Absolutely. I'll come in it sometimes to mold the clay when I need something specific, but otherwise I really do let my actors do whatever they feel is most natural. And unless it completely goes against what I want from the character or the scene, I usually let them do it.
Right.
I'm always very open, too. You can ask almost any of my cast members that... Scott Lewis, my go-to cinematographer editor, love you, Scott, he put it best. I think he said it, I forget if he said it in an interview or if he was just talking to one of the other actors on the set of CarousHELL, but he said, Steve will always fucking listen to you. He won't always use your idea, but he'll fucking try it. If he was filming that scene just now, and the neighbor from across the street walked over to the house, knocked on the door, and said, hey, I think you should do it this way, Steve would say, fuck it, let's try it, we got time. And I do, I have always been open to any sorts of ideas because I'm also very much in the camp that I don't always know the best way possible. And I've worked with directors that do believe they always know the best way possible. And spoilers, they don't.
No, generally they don't. Generally they micromanage and ultimately lose sight of the big picture, in my opinion.
That is the biggest thing that I've always said. I've said that in every interview. I'll say it in this one too. Keep my streak going. My biggest advice to filmmakers starting out, or just directors as a whole, because you're never too old or too into the game to take advice, is that sometimes you have to be able to say good enough and move on, because the big picture matters more than just this one fucking shot.
Plus, especially when that one fucking shot could be cut.
Or you already filmed it right 5 times.
Yep.
Because not everything's going to be perfect. Things won't be absolutely what you envisioned every single time, but who's going to know that? You.
That's right.
One person. You know what more people will know? When you're 3 months past schedule and you haven't paid anyone yet because you're still fucking filming.
Yeah.
Then everyone knows. But if something's not absolutely minutely perfect, only you're going to know that, and maybe the cinematographer. Maybe.
Right.
It's not worth it. The big picture is what matters. The completed film, which is a product. As much as we are artists, this is also a product for consuming.
Yep.
And you have to deliver that product. It's not just a painting in your bedroom that you can spend as long as you want on. People are depending on this shit.
Right. So now you kind of brought up a good topic here, and that's budgeting and being over budget and or behind. How do you handle that? Because I think a lot of filmmakers get tripped up in that regard. I know me personally, I have had issues with that, and securing funding for movies and things like that. Like, how do you approach that?
Well, I mean, are you talking budgeting or are you talking securing funding? Because
let's talk securing funding.
Securing funding has been, kind of just a crapshoot. Everyone Must Die, Slasher Hunter were completely out of pocket. That was just out of my own savings that I saved up to make those movies. The co-writer of Everyone Must Die did put in a chunk of the cash, like a third of it. Mm-hmm. Super Task Force was that was made possible through Indiegogo, although still $800 came out of my own pocket. But a big chunk of it came from the fans who simply want to pre-order the movie because it's such a niche audience that even though it doesn't have the Power Rangers name, it's close enough and people have been thirsty.
Right.
But Captain Z, that wasn't so much me securing the funding. In fact, it wasn't me securing the funding at all. That was Zoltan Zeli, the producer, coming to me and saying, like, hey, I really like Everyone Must Die. I'm really surprised and impressed at how you got a worldwide release and cable release and Amazon Prime release, and you're getting in store shelves, and you're doing really well, and it had a budget of $3,500. So I'm going to pay you to direct my movie idea. So that was, Captain Z was all his money,
right,
and like his father's money. So that was nice because I didn't have to worry about that shit at all. I did the budgeting, but he got the money together. CarousHELL, unfortunately, was a pain because it had we originally aimed for a $15,000 budget through the Indiegogo, and we thought that it would be something that we could get because I've seen a lot of, again, fucking schlock reach unbelievable numbers, and they have nothing to show for it.
Yep.
I don't matter, but I'm an established filmmaker with products on store shelves. I have stuff under my belt, so we thought it would be not necessarily a sure shot, but well enough. You were like, we'd probably get $10,000. We could probably get $10,000. That's not insane. And that failed horribly. We got like $1,400, which was enough to buy the horse, because that shit's expensive.
Wow.
And we were planning on doing basically a short and uploading that to YouTube, and then hopefully using that, getting some buzz from that just being weird and shit, and hopefully using that as a drive to turn that into a feature, like some other independent filmmakers have done.
Right.
So there was some problems. We kept running into like personal issues. I got fucking married. I did one movie.
That's a good personal issue. That's not a bad personal issue.
I didn't say it was bad, just personal issues. I did one movie called Red Christmas on the super cheap just because I hate found footage films and I hate torture porn films, so I wanted to see what it was like to make my own found footage torture porn film.
Not fun?
Honestly, it was a blast to make because found footage is a chore to watch, but man, is it easy as fuck to shoot.
Yeah.
So easy to shoot.
It's like you're doing a documentary. I mean, documentaries are easy to put together because you literally just got a camera. I mean, you just start shooting.
Yeah, it was great. And Amy Wren, the lead actress of Red Christmas, really knocked it out of the park. She did a fantastic job, really understood the character, and she carried the movie, which she had to. I mean, it was like over an hour of her talking mostly to herself, and it turned out solid. A lot of people have told me, like, at the last Horror Realm, I thought nothing of Red Christmas. I released it, I sold it, whatever. But at the last Horror Realm, a bunch of people who I'd never seen before came up to me and said, hey, I really like Red Christmas. I thought that was a really effective movie. And, like, some review websites outright said, like, hey, I don't like torture porn films, but I like this one because it's less like Eli Roth Hostel and more like Macaulay Culkin from Home Alone. Because I still had to have fun.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But I did that just to do something because, I had the creative itch. I had to do something. And then at a following Christmas party, I had a lot of people over. I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of contacts, both in the industry, out of the industry, what have you. And I was just talking about, someone asked about CarousHELL. Just so happened to ask about CarousHELL, what was going on with it, and I told him, well, we got the horse together, we're going to start painting it within the next few weeks, and then come spring, we want to do the short. This is previous Christmas, so 2015 Christmas. And he said, well, I mean, what's the budget going to, what do you need? I'm like, well, we did the budget, we put it together, and it would cost $15,000, I mean, that's about what Captain Z costs, except now we can use the money better. The way the script was written, there's only like 2 locations, so more of the money can go towards actual talent and effects and stuff like that. And we would be able to make a really quality film. Because Captain Z, honestly, overall is a quality film. It's a hard sell because it's a weird fucking movie. But it looks like a studio film.
I love Captain Z. I really do. That's by far one of my favorites of yours. That, and I do like Super Task Force.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that again. But CarousHELL would look even better with the same budget because we learned a lot, and also it's going to be although there's still a lot to it, it's a smaller production in that sense. Because Captain Z had a lot of locations. We took over the entire fucking city of Wheeling for that movie. We took over a museum. Like, a lot of money went into that sort of stuff. Whereas for this movie, we wouldn't need that. So anyway, I say that. I say, it would be $15,000. And someone else I know looked at me and said, $15,000? That's it? Okay, fuck, I'll give it to you.
Are you serious?
Yes. And it's because he's a really big fan of Captain Z and loved what I did with Captain Z.
Wow.
And so he just gave me the money for CarousHELL.
Wow.
And that is Rob Steinbach, the executive producer of CarousHELL. Love you, Rob.
Wow. That's awesome. That's amazing.
And that started the ball rolling. We got that contract signed in December, and then we were ready to shoot in fucking May. Wow. And we already have a rough cut of the entire film. Just now the VFX are getting worked on, and the composer has started working on it.
That's
we should
fantastic.
Hopefully get a final cut by the end of August or September.
Wow. Amazing. So really, it's a matter of go to Christmas parties and
Yeah.
Have
That's what you got to. Christmas creates miracles. That's why I love Christmas.
It's true. It's true.
But I mean, really that's what it is. It's fucking luck. Like, you know someone who is fucking loaded, you con someone who is fucking loaded, which I won't do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you just get fucking lucky. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Like, both Captain Z and CarousHELL's budgets came simply from luck, and because the guy who gave me the money liked the last movie I made. If that guy didn't like the movie, I wouldn't have gotten the money.
Yeah. Are you distributing this thing on your own, or are you going through another distribution company?
CarousHELL?
Yeah.
We're gonna do the soft release first. I think that's always the best way to go, is to do like the theatrical premiere, send out some review copies, sell it at a few conventions to raise some buzz and stuff, and then you start worrying about distribution companies.
Right.
Because the only other option aside from doing that seems to be like doing just film fests and seeing who bites and not releasing it at all. But in my opinion, that's far more costly.
That's extremely costly. That's why I tried doing that with the documentary.
And it's such a crapshoot, and I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of it. Not to mention, it seems like whenever I make and finish and release a movie, it is right when every film festival that matters stops taking submissions.
Of course.
Every time. Like the major horror ones and I'm not fucking Sundance, but like Slam Dance or even Canes. Canes.
It's one of the other. It's like potato.
But that one's not a bad one either, because they actually they're open to a lot of stuff, even if it's still mostly studio independent stuff. But at least they're more open to legitimate independent stuff too.
There's still politics though involved with that.
No, absolutely. There's always politics, but that's also why I don't like it. I just don't like the idea of giving someone money to maybe screen my movie, and then they keep the profits of the sales anyway.
Well, I've had issues in my experience with film festivals, and this happened with Tablet of Tales, and it happened with House of Oddities, in the standpoint that I did the film festival route, and they kept scheduling me at times when no one was around. Mm-hmm. Like that's the worst. It's not so much necessarily like the last one I was at. It was during a red carpet event, which I've never done the red carpet thing, and that's actually pretty fun. But they scheduled my movie to play 2 hours before the red carpet opened. So
Great.
Do you know where the audience was at?
At the red carpet?
No, they were at their hotel rooms getting ready.
Oh, okay.
So, and actually, I was on my game with that one because I had done all the publicity. I had brought, flyers and postcards and all sorts of shit and was canvassing the whole area. So, I'd met with people. I'm like, oh, yeah, you got to see my movie, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, yeah, I really want to see it. And then when it came time to, it was like, oh, shit, they're getting ready for the red carpet, so no one showed up.
That sucks.
So, but that's the thing with film festivals is it's not just about
Having a
getting
good movie.
in. It's about making sure that, you are at a decent time where you can get your audience. Because if someone else's movie is more high profile, like Debbie Rochon's Model Hunger was playing at the same time as mine was, they're going to go to hers. And, I can't say I blame them. I love Debbie. She's awesome.
Debbie's fantastic.
But, that kind of, hurts my audience.
No, absolutely. I've done that even at conventions when I've had screenings. I remember I did one anime convention, wanted to push Super Task Force really strong, which I appreciate. It screened at a couple other ones, but not like a major push. But this one was like, yeah, let's give you a prime time. You're one of the lead special guests. We're going to put this shit in the flyer. But they put the screening of Super Task Force at the exact same time as the big Q&A thing with, like, one of the big fucking voice actors they had there.
Yeah.
The
and you're
biggest
just
one
like,
they had.
I can't compete with that.
So, I sat in a room with 3 other people, and it was a huge auditorium, too. Like, they gave me a nice room, but they put me at the worst fucking time.
Yeah.
They couldn't, and they could have laddered it. Easily. They could have laddered it, but they didn't.
Well, my thing is, and I told, I didn't tell the festival director, because she's really nice, but she told us, like, at the first day, she's like, if you got a complaint, don't tell me. I'm like, okay. So I went to one of the festival workers, who was kind of like, film festivals, they have that one guy who's like in charge of flipping the movies.
Yeah.
I went to him and I was like, listen, I love your film festival. I'm definitely going to come back here again. But you guys got to get a handle on this whole movie scheduling thing. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, the problem is you got too many movies. That's the problem. You got to scale it back. Mine was scheduled at a time, and it's because of the fact they have too many movies, when there was no one around. So maybe you either cut back on the movies you're playing, or you basically make it so that movies stop playing 2 hours before the red carpet thing. To give people enough time to go there, but also at the same time to make sure that every filmmaker has somewhat of an audience, So he was like, oh, that's a good idea. I'm like, okay. Glad to illuminate you.
Yeah.
But, the film festival thing, I think it's good if you go to the right ones, but honestly, it's tough even to get into those right ones,
It's very tough to get into the right ones, and there's so fucking many that so many of them are just worthless. Like, all you're gonna get is your movie surrounded by a couple grains of wheat. Because unless it's a film festival that distributors, talent like scouts go to, it doesn't matter if you win an award there. At all.
I think having the awards are good. I think the bigger thing though is buzz and reviews. Yeah,
absolutely. Because it's one thing to be like, this movie screened at blank and it won this award. Oh, cool. What do people have to say about it? Well, it's not on IMDb yet. There's no Amazon reviews. Are there any reviews you can link? Nah.
Yeah.
Here's a trailer.
Here's a trailer.
Oh, great. It's perfect. I'm looking forward to this now. But getting those reviews, just getting different perspectives and just getting people writing about it helps way more to me than all those film festivals do.
Absolutely.
Unless you get into one of the big ones, which good fucking luck.
That's the thing.
Unless you're blowing the people running it, which I will.
Says the man who says he won't con people.
No, I won't con people. Yeah, that's mutually beneficial.
Oh, God. So I guess I should ask the obvious question here. You kind of, even though you do mostly horror comedy, I don't think people necessarily can pigeonhole you as a genre director.
No, definitely not.
You've done, Captain Z, which, it has elements of horror, but it really...
It's an adventure movie.
That's what I would say. It's an adventure film, and, Super Task Force is a, Power Rangers type of movie. I can't pronounce the actual name.
Tokusatsu.
Tokusatsu. There you go.
There, you did it.
Okay, good. Yeah. Gold medal for me. But these are different styles of movie that, most directors, I think they get pigeonholed at, you're just the horror guy, or you're just the sci-fi guy. Have you had any challenges with jumping back and forth between genres?
As a director, no. Selling the films, yes.
Yeah.
As a director, I think it helps me a lot to be able to shift genres and shift ideas and stuff, because that helps me keep things fresh. whether it's, adding horror elements to Captain Z or adding the more silly, fantastical elements to CarousHELL. It's a lot easier to flow that when I'm going back and forth with these sorts of things. It keeps my mind moving. It prevents me from getting stagnant or getting lazy. Mm-hmm. And especially, I was really excited to do CarousHELL because, honestly, CarousHELL is the first slasher film I've done since Everyone Must Die. Right. After Everyone Must Die, I did Super Task Force, I did Captain Z, I did Red Christmas, I did The Survivors. None of those are slasher films. CarousHELL was finally back to the slasher film, and it's the slasher film I've always wanted to make. Not that I've always wanted to make CarousHELL specifically, but I've always wanted to make a slasher film where the slasher is the fucking hero of the movie, and is much more so the main character than the rest of the cast. They're still main human characters, don't get me wrong, but like a Freddy Krueger type deal.
Right. As
opposed to Everyone Must Die, which is more of a Jason or Michael Myers type deal, where they were a silent killer and it wasn't so much about them as it was about the kids. So as a creator, it's fantastic. I like the fact that I'm not pigeonholed. I like the fact that whenever I announce my next film, people are like, "What? Okay." Much less so now because they're somewhat used to me being so out of nowhere. But like after Everyone Must Die, I vividly remember after Everyone Must Die, I got interviewed being like, "So what's next? Everyone Must Die is doing okay. What's the next thing you're doing?" It's like, "Oh, I'm going to make a tokusatsu." And everyone's like, "What the fuck? Why are you doing that?" I'm like, "I don't want to. I want to." But these days, it's less surprising to people that at least are somewhat aware of my career.
Yeah.
But when it comes to selling, it's much harder, because not all of my movies are specifically for an audience, whether I take it to a horror con or a comic con.
Yeah.
Or a Japanese culture con. My booth is not a go-to booth for the entire audience at any of those shows, and that does hurt me. If I'm in Wasteland or Horror Realm, it's just like, yeah, Everyone Must Die, yeah, Red Christmas, what's this? Oh, it's Captain Z, it's about a time-traveling pirate. Oh. It's like, no, it's like Army of Darkness, it's really fun. I mean, okay, that's more of a maybe. If at a Comic-Con, it's like, yeah, this is this adventure comedy, it's like Army of Darkness, Doctor Who, like, fuck yeah, let me get this, and what's this one? Oh, this one's Everyone Must Die, it's got, 19 bloody kills and a bunch of tits and fucking, it's just like, oh, no thanks, I don't want to. No. So
let me ask you this. You mentioned CarousHELL. Do you want to go ahead and give us a quick synopsis about what the movie's about?
Absolutely. CarousHELL is a slasher comedy. It is about a sentient, living carousel unicorn who gets abused too badly by one bratty piece of shit kid, so he breaks free of his ride to go on a bloody rampage of revenge tracking this kid down.
That's awesome. That's phenomenal. So
it's a fun story. The kid is at the park because his big sister has to watch him for the day, so then she takes him to a house party. The Dr. Loomis of the film is Cowboy Cool, who is a mascot from the park, so it's a giant novelty cowboy head of this dude talking like a cowboy with a leather jacket because he's cool, chasing down Duke to stop him. And Duke doesn't move, he floats.
Right.
And you'll see his hooves move in shots when it's just close up of the hooves, even though that doesn't make any sense. But in all wide shots, he's a completely stationary horse, he's not puppeted, continuously doing insane things that make no sense, like throwing ninja stars, or he has a bow and arrow, and people are getting arrows in them, even though there's no way he can pull the bow. So
it's kind of like the movie Jack Frost.
Yes, it is definitely like Jack Frost, except Jack Frost moved more.
He did, but there were a lot of things I'm automatically thinking of how he drowned the one girl in a bathtub with himself.
Yes.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
So it's going to be a magical adventure of mayhem.
Awesome.
I'm really excited for it.
Now you do something else aside from making movies, and I know it's kind of worth mentioning, but you are a Marvel superhero actor as well?
Yes, I am Spider-Man.
You are Spider-Man. How did you get involved in being Spider-Man? I mean, did you get bit by a radioactive spider too?
Actually, it was genetically modified. I'm Ultimate Spider-Man.
Monsanto gave it to you?
Yes. Their food is safe, but don't trust their spiders. Basically, my wife's uncle runs the Shrine Circus in Pittsburgh. He is in charge of the whole fucking shebang.
Wow.
And he usually has done Marvel gigs. Or DC, you know, he's had Batman show up as well. And he knows that I'm an actor, I'm a filmmaker, I do this for a living. So he said to me, hey, you know, Marvel lets me get a local guy to play the villain usually. They just send their hero. You know, it saves us a little bit of money since we're kind of a non-profit thing. So would you be interested in being the Green Goblin? And I said, fucking course. Are you fucking, why is this a question? So, you know, I talked to Marvel, you know, a little bit of back and forth, nothing much. Because the villain doesn't matter as much. You know, I'm on stage for like maybe 5 minutes out of a 20-minute show. For that show specifically, I mean. Right. There's other shows where the villain is fucking the star. And I meet the guy from Marvel, he's Kevin Porter, which a lot of people know as like Batman from almost all of the online fan films.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he introduces himself to everyone as Kevin Porter Batman. You
mean from the Bat and the Sun movies?
Yes.
Oh, shit.
He's the guy who fought Darth Vader.
Wow.
And he's been Deathstroke, but he also was Milestone's top guy playing Batman for legitimately Warner Brothers and DC for years. You know that fucking meme that has Flash and Wonder Woman talking to this lost kid?
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, that's not the story. That kid just went up to take a picture with the Flash and Wonder Woman. Someone made that shit up, and I know that because the Flash is Kevin Porter. And told me about that experience. So whenever you see someone post that, be like, this is a lie. But he was also Marvel's top guy. You know, he worked for both companies. So he was Spider-Man, which is hilarious because he's like 6'6", huge. He looks like Venom dressed as Spider-Man.
Right.
But he's good with kids, and Paul has worked with him multiple times. So I met Kevin, worked with Kevin, and by the end of the weekend, he was just like, so you did a really great job, Steve. Like, you were really top-notch. You need to audition because they're looking for new fucking heroes. So I did. You know, I went to Marvel. I auditioned against like 20 other guys, both in terms of being in character, answering questions, which were so weak. Kids have asked way harder questions than these people did.
Like about the character?
Yeah, they always try to stump me. Never works. And little other stuff like stage fighting, if I can do like shoulder rolls. It's simple stuff because it's not the stunt show. It's not the Marvel Universe Live stunt show with pyrotechnics and fucking high wires and shit. But it's still stage shows with stage fighting, so you have to be able to do stunts on stage. And jumping, flexibility, and of course how in shape you are, how good you're going to look in spandex. And I won. You know, I beat out all the other guys. They said I was the best Spider-Man possible. And I've been doing that for 3 years now?
Wow.
2 or 3? I want to say 3, yeah. And that's taken me fucking, you know, all over. You know, I fly, it's all over the country. It's been overseas. Most of the time, it's just meet and greets. Yeah. Most of the time, it feels like I'm in Columbus a lot. Columbus loves Marvel. I don't know why, but they do. But it's also parades. It's stage shows. You know, Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, Spider-Man. Stage shows in Dubai, Spider-Man. You know, stuff like that.
Awesome. Does that work? Does that like aid you in your filmmaking at all?
It aids me money wise,
right? But I meant like
because it's a wonderful, you know, consistent acting contract, and those are as rare as unicorns are.
Right.
As far as like the helping with the filmmaking directly, I mean, not really. I mean, there's very separate worlds. I feel, you know, this is Spider-Man is my acting job, and movies are my directing job.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's good for experience. It helps me travel. You know, I've seen a whole lot of cities I would have never have seen if it wasn't for this. And of course, it's free travel because Marvel pays for it.
That's true.
And I'll do little things like maybe toss some of my flyers in a bar or a restaurant that I eat at, just to help spread Silver Spotlight a little bit more around the globe. But other than that, not really. No, they're very separate.
Interesting.
Although I will say it helps as an in for other interviews. Like I got interviewed in some local magazine, but the in was the fact that I was Spider-Man, and because of that I got to talk about my movies in the magazine.
Right.
It's far more impressive to people for me to say, hey, I'm fucking Spider-Man, than, hey guys, I make movies, and sometimes you can see them in stores, and they're pretty good.
Well, that's when you say, I'm Spider-Man and I make movies.
I mean, that's what I do now.
Yeah.
But Spider-Man is a far easier icebreaker.
Very true.
Because it's like, what? Did you just say?
And you're like, yeah, I'm fucking Spider-Man, bitch.
Yeah.
What's your day job?
Yeah, what do you do? Do you make children's dreams come true? and get paid a lot of money to wear spandex and get hit on all the time? I think not.
You get hit on all the time with Spider-Man?
Oh my god, yes. So, well, here's Brian. Do this equation.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the equation. You tell me what X is. What does this equation equal? Fit guy, in spandex, nothing to hide, funny, great with kids.
Oh, that's every girl's dream.
That equals sploosh.
Oh, God.
Iron Man gets it a lot, too. I've been Iron Man a few times, and Iron Man's easier because I can flirt so hard way back. Spidey, I have to be more subtle, because my Spider-Man's married.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
I'm the Mary Jane married Spider-Man. I'm not the single Spider-Man that Marvel's been pushing for the past 5 years. Go fuck yourself, Joe Q. Spider-Man's fucking married. But I will often hold blondes and redheads very close.
Does your wife get jealous of your many talents as Spider-Man and Iron Man when it comes to the flirting, or is she like, no, okay, it's just acting?
No, I mean, she knows it's just acting. She's an actor, too. That's how we met. Elaine, we both met on the set of Everyone Must Die. She got the part before I started having sex with her, I promise.
You can't necessarily tell. Like, I was like watching the whole movie going, oh, they're really good chemistry. I bet you they're dating. Sure enough.
Yeah.
Yep, you were dating.
Yeah, now we are.
So.
But, but she gets it. I see her make out with dudes on stage. She watches me hit on and get hit on by women. She knows that the chicks at conventions get drunk and super hit on me or grab me and kiss me and stuff, and she knows. And it's fine, It's like, I'm not fucking all these other women. But Aline also knows that, if their lips go on mine, I'm just putting my hands in the air. Like, I'm not going to stop it. I'm not initiating this, but I'm not going to push this poor person off of me. That would be mean.
That would be mean. I mean, they took the effort to try to go ahead and, initiate make out with you. I mean, you should at least let them finish.
The first one, at least.
At least the first one.
Yeah. But no, I mean, she has that right side of me that there's a level of jealousy, and there should be because she loves me. Right. But it's also hot that other people find me this hot, so she's into it.
Awesome. So, I guess I should ask, since you do the superhero thing, what do you think of the current crop of superhero movies that we're seeing now?
There's different phases of these superhero movies. As a whole, I'm extremely happy because I've always been a huge comic book fan. I'm as big of a comic fan as I am a horror fan. Always have been. So as a whole, I'm really glad that these movies are mainstream. I'm glad that we're getting so many. I do not think the market is as saturated as people claim it is. This is nothing like the fucking westerns of the 50s. This is nothing like the slashers of the 80s when there were hundreds of slashers a year. And that still went for 10 years fucking strong before it died. This is, 5 movies a year?
You're getting generally around that, yeah.
Yeah, and even then, in those 5 movies, you're going to get different genres. They just so happen to be superheroes.
Right.
Like Batman v Superman is nothing like Civil War. And depending on who you ask, that's good or bad. But to me, that's great that they're so different. If I want the Saturday morning cartoon, not as a negative, I can watch Civil War. If I want more of a epic, dramatic tale, I can watch Dawn of Justice. And they're so different from each other that I like that. Versus, a lot of slashers were the same.
Yeah,
and that's why that market was saturated.
Personally, I don't think it's necessarily saturated. I just think that I think the public themselves are getting tired. And it's, as I said, it's not like the westerns or even the slashers. Like the slashers, the one benefit the slashers had and why it became so saturated was they're cheap to make. And it still is. It's still cheap to make. Cheaper, I mean, to make. But with the superhero movies, I think the problem is more or less that it's become focused more on world building and not necessarily telling a complete story. It's always like, I see this more with Marvel than I do with DC. I mean, personally, I was not a fan of Dawn of Justice. I mean, there's a whole review episode of me tearing that movie apart because I was disappointed as a Batman fan. Which is fine.
But I'm glad that you aren't in the in the boat of like, oh, they did too much world building, which they like did as much as Iron Man 2 did.
Right. No,
and no one was losing their fucking shit over Iron Man 2. Like they did this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like I was watching Age of Ultron, and
oh my god, here's my issue with Marvel movies. And I work for Marvel, so I hope I don't get fired. I won't get fired. I've talked shit on Marvel multiple times. I've done Reddit AMAs. They're a good company to work for because I can say what I want without fear of repercussions for it. Right. I will absolutely. They're a great company to work for. They work with me, and they aren't crazy about things. Phase 1 of Marvel, I love. I love Phase 1 of the MCU. I love Iron Man. I love the Incredible Hulk. Thor exists. Iron Man 2 was fun, not great, but it was fun at least.
Yeah, it was.
And the first Captain America was fucking great. I love those movies. And the first Avengers, while in retrospect is somewhat average, still effectively did what it was supposed to do. It was a cherry on top of Phase 1. It was the ending, it was the finale, and it planted a couple little seeds for Phase 2. Okay, so if Avengers 1 was a farmer planting like 3 seeds in his garden, Age of Ultron was the farmer on a fucking seed machine driving through the fucking field, spraying thousands of seeds everywhere, not caring about what he ran over on the way. Age of Ultron was not a finale to Phase 2 in any way, shape, or form. It was nothing but a build-up to Phase 3.
I felt that I was watching a... what was that movie, like 2 hours, over 2 hours or so? Mm-hmm. I felt I was watching a 2-hour-long trailer for Infinity War.
Yeah, that's all it felt like.
That's what it felt like to me. It's like, okay, like I honestly think that they had a checklist while they were making the movie, and they were just like, okay, we need to mention this part of Thanos. We need to mention this. We need to mention that. We need to mention this. It's like, dude, I just want to watch the movie. And like Ultron he's a villain that, quite honestly, you know, I'd say he's on the higher echelon of villains for Marvel. Like,
yeah,
he's not anything to snuff at, you know. But they just turned him into a fucking joke.
They did. That's just Whedon for you.
Yeah, I know it was Whedon, but I mean, and honestly, I'm so sick and tired of the Whedon-isms.
Yeah. That's all Phase 2 was. Like, with the exception of Guardians of the Galaxy.
I love Guardians of the Galaxy.
I love Guardians, and I think the only reason why that movie was safe from it was that because they didn't care about the characters enough. They weren't big-time characters. They weren't A-listers that matter, so they let James Gunn do what he fucking wanted.
Plus, it helps he comes from trauma.
Well, that's a positive or a negative, depending on how you look at it.
I look at it as a positive because he knows how to make a movie with little money. So I mean,
appreciated that Lloyd Kaufman was in prison where he belongs in the film. So, but Guardians was great. But aside from that, all of Phase 2 was basically Marvel saying like, "Oh, well, the Avengers was popular. Make this movie more like Joss Whedon." For every fucking movie, and it was like, and we don't have to talk about Dawn of Justice as a film. You don't like it, I love it. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with you not liking it. But it bothered me that the entire internet kept on losing its shit over the email scene, which I agree is a weaker part of the film, but I will take that fucking email scene over what the fuck Age of Ultron did for the entire fucking movie.
True. For me, I felt it was just ridiculous, that particular scene, because I'm like, okay, so let me get this straight. You're telling me that LexCorp has designed logos for each one of these superheroes that just so happens to be the logo that they go by, like, and it's
to be fair, for 2 of them, they already go by the logo before Lex designed them.
True.
Aquaman and Wonder Woman, they wear that shit.
Okay, I get that, but
I'll grant you Cyborg with no argument.
And Flash, I could maybe see, well, he's literally covered in lightning, so let's give him a lightning bolt. I guess I look at it from the standpoint of why would you just not have a file folder that, you know, just you click on it and there you got a video like that. It just seemed forced. I prefer that. I would have preferred that, and I would have preferred if the email scene was earlier in the film. Oh, absolutely. Because where it is, it slams the brakes on the fight of Batman and Superman. Yeah. That's leading up to so much to that point. And then that email scene happens, just like, come on. No, my issue with Dawn of Justice, and it's just a quick thing here, my issue is just that it tries to do too much in one movie. That's the biggest one. You've got a couple different threads going on, and it's like, I don't know which one to focus on. It's like, okay, there's the thing between Batman versus Superman. Okay, I get that. And then it's, okay, Lex is trying to get kryptonite, and then it's, I'm going to use Batman to get the kryptonite. And then it's just like, now there's Doomsday involved. And I'm just going, whoa, this didn't have to be this way. You watch the Dark Knight series, okay, the Batman Begins, for example, okay? Exactly what the progression is, even though people say that Batman Begins is not exactly, is one of the weaker ones.
That's the only one that I like of those movies.
Batman Begins?
Yeah, I think it's the best one Nolan made. It's the most Batman movie.
I personally, I love Dark Knight. A
lot of people do, and Dark Knight's still a great film. I just think Begins is a better film.
Begins
overall.
is a great origin story. I think it hits it on the end. Like, I love the fact that we actually focus on Bruce Wayne instead of just the villain, because that's what a lot of the Burton movies were. We're just, okay, here's a new villain, but it's like you never really get into why Batman is Batman and why he does what he does. And
well, in the Burton movies, everyone should know Bruce Wayne is Batman, because Bruce Wayne is fucking crazy.
He is.
He doesn't fucking hide it like, hey, Bruce, you're sleeping upside down like a bat! You're really neurotic, you sleep in the daytime, you keep on talking about bats. Weird.
I wonder who this mysterious bat character could be.
Who can it be?
It's Alfred.
Like, say what you will about Schumacher, but I really, really like Batman Forever, because that felt much. That's I don't want to argue, but I like Forever because it feels much more like an actual balanced Batman movie, because Bruce feels like Bruce, but Batman still feels like Batman.
Yeah.
And also, I was pretty pumped how after 2 movies of Batman being a psychotic murderer, and it not being touched upon, because while I agree that's a negative of Batman v Superman, that's at least the point of the fucking character arc, and they make it a point, and Alfred says, hey man, you're fucking wrong! And it ends with Bruce Wayne going like, man, I kind of fucked up killing all those people. Whoops.
Yeah.
The Burton movies were just like, hey, I'm going to strap a bomb to you and smile as you die, because I take pleasure in this. Anyway, after 2 movies of that, I was really excited when a goon was about to fall down an elevator shaft in Forever, and instead Batman saved him and tied him up instead. I was like, yay! Yay, that's so good! I'm so happy!
Yeah. I mean, I have my issues with the Schumacher movies. I just see it as, like, I like my Batman to be dark, brooding, and somewhat psychotic, because, I mean, you got to be psychotic to go ahead and do what you do. My issues...
To me, Batman is, he's both. He's everyone, and this is a knock on you, but I think too many people focus on just the dark, brooding Batman, and they forget about the Batman that has cracked a few jokes, or a smile, or, when Jason Todd had the flu and was still trying to suit up to be Robin, he said, no, you fucking stay here. And then after a moment, he sat down and said, Gotham can watch his stuff, let's watch cartoons. There was the softer side to Bruce that I feel that some stories don't touch upon at all.
You're right. There's 2 elements to it, and honestly, I think...
And Forever, to me, it was both dark and light. Then you get into Batman and Robin, which is far too light, but then you look at, say, Batman Returns, which is far too fucking dark.
Well, we said on the show last week that, because we were talking about sequels, and we said that Batman Returns is basically a Tim Burton masturbatory fantasy.
Yes.
And I still stick by that. There's a part of me that loves Batman Returns, but there's also a lot of stuff that just makes absolute zero fucking sense. The one
her name's Catwoman, right? Okay, so she's going to eat this bird.
Well, no, it's not, that one doesn't bug me that much. That's
just one of thousands of things that bug me in the fucking movie.
The primary one, and I'll leave it at this, is Batman getting the bat signal delivered to him, not by cameras, which would make sense or anything like that. It's with a
more bat signals.
A bizarro, convoluted mousetrap type of way of mirror systems to shoot directly into his den. And I'm just thinking to myself,
sitting in the dark all the time.
Yes, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, as a kid, I'm in the theater watching. I'm like, okay, I get it. I love this. But as an adult watch, I'm just going, what if Batman was taking a shit?
Yeah.
What if he was making dinner or just making a sandwich? I mean, I'm assuming
Bruce Wayne at the gala.
Yeah. What would happen? Like, would it just continue to still shine in that particular one room? They never. That doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, it would make more sense if he had cameras that were constantly aimed at the sky, and he had like a watch that would show up and you'd see the bat symbol. Like, that would make more sense to me.
My favorite part of Batman Returns is how Gotham has the cleanest sewers in the world. Drink straight from that fucking water.
Wow.
Crystal clear.
It really is. It really is. There's no one poops in Gotham City.
No.
Oh God.
I got a lot of Jesus Christ, Batman Returns. Don't get me started on Batman Returns.
I know. That's a conversation for another day. So I'll just ask you, just like the usual, what's next for Silver Spotlight?
I mean, I'll get back to you, because I'm knee deep in CarousHELL. I don't like to...
Quite literally.
Yeah, I don't like to think ahead. I always get that question a lot, when I do interviews for, like...
It's the obligatory ending question, that's why.
It's the ending question, but we're editing CarousHELL. We got to do the commentary, we got to do bonus features, we got to do the authoring of the DVD and the Blu-ray. I got to get, screener copies of conventions. I got to plan the fucking world premiere at the Hollywood Theater in Dormont. There's so much to do with CarousHELL, and then even after all that's done, then it's promotion, then it's actually going to the conventions, it's pushing it, it's releasing it, it's talking to distributors. I'm not going to think about my next movie until 2017.
Fair enough.
Like, there's ideas. There's a few ideas popped around in my head. I got this one slasher idea. I'll share it because I don't know if I'm going to make it. But there's no, like, set story. There's no script at all. But it's the idea that it starts off as a very generic, ho-hum, campy slasher film where people are taking, like, their friend out to a cabin by the lake and, like, oh, there's this legend that this murderer died in the lake years ago, so let's use this shitty seance kit from Kmart to try to talk to him. And they do it super shittily, but then the main character is walking around and she keeps finding dead bodies everywhere. And she finds, like, her one friend dead and her other friend dead. And then she finds these two campers just gutted everywhere. And she goes back to the house and, like, the killer's trying to get in and they're screaming. And then they're like, oh, just kidding. The killer is their friend Randy because it was a fucking seance kit from Kmart. And their one friend Joe is a makeup artist. So he put all this makeup on all of their friends just to fuck with her because it was their prank. And she's just like, oh, well, how did you do this kill? Oh, well, we put, like, spaghetti here. Like, oh, how'd you do this kill? Oh, it was, like, the styrofoam and the latex, and we just pulled it back. Oh, well, how'd you do the guts with the campers? What campers? And then the door busts open, and the seance actually fucking work, and now there's a monster. And now they gotta deal with this shit for the rest of the movie.
Awesome.
But that's just an idea. I don't know if I'm gonna make that, but it's up there. I'll
Awesome.
worry about that after CarousHELL makes me a bunch of money, or fails, and I retire from filmmaking and just make fan films for the rest of my life, because they take no effort but get tens of thousands of hits.
Yeah, they do. But you gotta watch out though now.
The Survivors, a lot of work, and it was made for the internet. It's nothing amazing. It's not feature quality. I'm not arguing that. But a lot of work. 500 hits. Spider-Man and Ant-Man sitting on the steps outside of my home talking to each other with no editing. 50,000 hits. Yay! Why bother trying?
Well, I mean, I don't know what to say to that. I mean, you got to worry now about fan films now because the whole Star Trek rules that came out that people fear that are going to affect other fan films.
Well, that happened because those guys were fucking idiots and douchebags, and Paramount absolutely did the right thing. And I say that as someone that, comes down hard on companies attacking fan films. Like when Saban made that MMPR movie come down, I was fucking furious. Not because I liked that short, because I thought the short was hilarious, but everyone didn't look at it as a satire. It was like, Jesus Christ, this is what you motherfuckers want? This bloody reboot with fucking murder and Bulk and Skull doing meth? This is what you actually want? This movie's making fun of you! This movie's making fun of you! Anyway, so I didn't love it, but when Saban took it down, I was furious. They were just like, well, I mean, Saban was like, no, if Saban takes this down, then any studio can take anything down. The point is that this movie was satire. Not only is this bad for fan films, but this will be bad for satire as a whole. It's a huge fucking problem. But then Saban just had them put a disclaimer at the beginning of the video that said that they aren't affiliated with Saban, and they let the movie go back up.
Yeah, I mean,
And they were in the best position to keep it down. The problem with the whole Star Trek fan film is that they took all this fucking money in Kickstarter, all this fucking money, which already is a fucking tightrope above a pool of lava. And I don't know how other guys get away with it. I don't think you should be doing that for a fan film. Fan films should not need so much of a budget that you're having a Kickstarter for $50,000 fucking dollars. But whatever. But their problem was that they were using all that fan film money to build themselves a movie studio that they were going to use for all of their own fucking movies.
Right. In that regard, I absolutely agree with you. My problem, though, is because I've read those guidelines that come out, and for me, it feels like, Sony and well, no, it wasn't Sony. It was CBS and Paramount. That they are threatened by the quality that fan films can be made for now. It isn't like you're grabbing your dad's camcorder and making a Star Wars or Star Trek movie. You can make movies now, and Axanar especially, even the prelude to Axanar was about the same level as something that Hollywood could crap out. Yeah. And I think they felt threatened by it, and that's why they put things like I thought the fact that you could not have anyone who either worked previously or currently at CBS, and you could not, like, that pretty much gets rid of all your B, C, Z actors who were in these movies, in the shows, even years ago, that they can't work on any fan film, that you could be sued for that. I thought that was too much. I think that making it so that you're capped at a certain time, I think that's too much too.
I agree with the capped for sure.
I don't agree with the cap. I think that
I agree with your opinion.
Oh, okay,
about the cap.
good.
Yeah.
But the cap, the fact that you have to now suddenly use all of their licensed products if you're going to make a fan film, like that stuff, that squashes creativity. Part of the allure of these fan films is that it's people who love the story and want to continue it because they're not getting what they want out of Hollywood. They're not seeing the stories that they want. So
especially with Star Trek.
Yeah, especially with Star Trek. I mean, with Axanar, I can understand them suing them because of the fact that they did want to make a production company using that money. But I think that they've gone too far. And I think they've opened the doors to other companies saying, like, I automatically talk about Adult Wednesday Addams, CBS, same group, took down Adult Wednesday Addams because they felt that it was infringing on their copyright. Now, when you watch Adult Wednesday Addams, it is a satire in the purest sense of the word.
Well, I mean, to be fair, and this is a problem with CBS. Like, I think this is going to be a problem with just specific studios as opposed to everyone. I don't think this is going to open floodgates the way you do. Like, you're not wrong, but let's not forget that I think that this is just a knee-jerk reaction from Paramount and CBS because of the fucking Axion guys being so overzealous with their horseshit that they were pulling that now they're just like, you know what? Fuck it! Now you can't do this, or this, or this. Go fuck yourself. But other studios haven't been doing that at all, and they've had the time to do so, This was absolutely a knee-jerk reaction to these fuckwits. That being said, CBS and Paramount, when it comes to protecting the properties, feels like, especially CBS, feels like one of the worst studios to deal with when it comes to that.
Yeah.
But to be fair, when it comes to Adult Wednesday Addams, CBS just asked her to take it down, and she did.
They did threaten her, though.
Well, they sent a cease and desist, was what the threaten was.
Well, that's the start. Like, if she didn't do that, she would have been she would have had to go to court. And the thing is that
they wouldn't have necessarily taken her to court, though. I got a cease and desist for the Slasher Hunter from Warner Brothers because Frank resembled Freddy Krueger too much and Jay resembled Jason Voorhees too much, which, no shit, they were parodies of those characters.
Yeah.
They sent a cease and desist and said that they may see me in court if I continue with the film, but I released the film anyway because legally they had no ground to stand on.
But I think the problem is that most people, when they get a cease and desist, and if they're not fortunate enough, as you were, they do get put into court. They don't have the resources to battle someone like Warner Brothers or CBS or Paramount. They just made something that is, Adult Wednesday Addams is a fair use parody. Slasher Hunter is a fair use parody. Companies don't want that. They want only their officially approved versions. They do not want any variation. And they, in my opinion, use fear to get what they want by...
I don't think it's that black and white. It is literally a fact that if companies cannot show that they have tried to defend their trademarks, that they lose their trademark. That is a fact. They have to show that they do stuff to protect their intellectual properties. Most of the time, that just means sending out all these cease and desist to show, like, hey, we're keeping a fucking thumb on this. They send out thousands of those that you never hear about. And most people do, in fact, ignore them. Some people get scared and take their stuff down completely. You very, 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 very rarely ever hear about anyone actually going to court, and not because the studio slams them from the get-go no matter what. It's just because there's no reason to go to court. They're sending out the cease and desist to protect their intellectual property, even though they have no legal grounds to stand on, and they also know that. And I'm not saying that they're the good guys,
right,
or anything like that, but I think that it's much more gray than I feel that you are making it out to be. Like, they do have to do this to a degree, otherwise they legitimately will lose their trademark and their copyrights on their properties if they just let people go nuts with it.
I don't think you necessarily have to let people go nuts with it. I think you just have to not come across as we're going to sue your ass, you know? Like, that's my problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
You have to keep in mind, though, that even, like, with the cease and desist, like the cease and desist with the Slasher Hunter, if that went to court, which it wouldn't, they would have to... I could have hired the shittiest fucking lawyer I wanted to for the littlest amount of money, and it's still on them to prove that this was a direct infringement of their trademark. And even then, the worst that they would do to me most likely would either be to sue me for a portion of the profits, which is all on YouTube. They could have gotten $2 off of that, or use the court case to tell me to stop since I didn't stop my own accord.
Right.
Like, that sort of infringement on the intellectual rights with that sort of stuff is not a, we are going to sue you as a person into oblivion. It comes down to the property itself that was being infringed upon by the other property.
Right.
So I just don't think it's as heinous as you feel, I guess. And again, I'm not arguing that they're the good guys. I can agree with you that there's a better middle road to take. But legally speaking, they are just protecting their own assets, and I understand that. And that's the quickest, easiest way to do it, to just send out mindless fill-in-the-blank cease and desists that you can't ignore legally, because legally you are in the right. Mm-hmm. And they can still say, like, yeah, we didn't chase this case down because we took another... If they get questioned about it, I mean, like, we didn't take this case to court because we took another look at it and found that they were in the right. But they have that proof there for if they have to argue their trademark.
Fair enough. I mean, that's stuff that I didn't necessarily know that, you know, they had to do. I mean, personally, though, I feel that there's become a growth... It's
like a Google. I don't know if you heard about that, but Google keeps on trying to make people stop fucking saying, I'm going to Google it, because they're making Google no longer a trademark because it's becoming fair use.
Well,
so they keep on trying to push... Right, exactly, but it's the same thing. Like, they can't do cease and desist because no one's making a fucking Google a fan film or something. But it's the same idea, that they're losing the trademark on their company name because it has become not just a company name. It's become something much more used by everyone for anything.
Right.
But it's that sort of same idea.
I guess for me, I just feel that it's become almost like I've heard of as a clearance culture regarding everything. Where if you don't own the rights to it, you have to suddenly prove that you can use it, and you got to pay for it. And it's just become too much. I think the copyright system is completely fucked up. It doesn't take into account how the world is now, and I think it's harder on independent filmmakers, especially. To go ahead and create work that maybe takes advantage of fair use, because I mean, I was always taught in undergrad that if you don't have a piece of paper, you can be sued, and that sort of stuff. So I mean, and I mean, especially in just my own experience of making a documentary, you know, you're literally walking over the tightrope, you know, just because you're making a documentary, because you could have music in the background, you could have a logo that's in the background, something that is just part of the documentary process, and you know, it becomes a gray area. And it becomes a matter of you don't know what's going to happen. Like, and that stuff is considered fair use. I mean, I've looked it up and talked to lawyers and things like that, and they're like, yeah, this is considered fair use. But still, it's a matter of, well, you got to get that insurance in case they want to sue you.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
But, I mean, that's always assuming that they're going to take that action. And they very rarely do, honestly. It's usually only if you're doing something in a negative, like if something's in the background, like you were saying. Like if someone's drinking a Coke, so long as that character's not saying, like, man, Coke, this is the thing faggots drink. Coke's probably not going to care. Like Tucker and Dale versus Evil. It's about the marketing of the film is what those companies care more about. Like if you watch Tucker and Dale versus Evil, they're drinking Pabst Blue Ribbon throughout the entire film.
Right.
And the filmmakers outright say, like it's not like they weren't supported by Pabst Blue Ribbon. They just bought what they thought these guys would drink. And the only thing is that on the poster, they're holding Pabst Blue Ribbon, but the logo's gone. Right. Because that's the marketing poster. They don't want Pabst Blue Ribbon. If they were part of the marketing, they'd have an issue with it. But being a beer being drank by people drinking beer in the film, that's game.
Right.
It's that sort of thing. And I mean, you're right about the tightrope, and you're right about the whole copyright system. I definitely don't agree with the people that say no copyright, because that's insane.
No, that is insane.
And I think I'm somewhat in the camp where I think we need somewhat of a middle ground of what we have now and what we used to have. Because what it used to be was like 15 fucking years and you're fucked. Yeah. And Disney pushed to extend that a lot. In a good way for a while. I am a fan of a copyright lasting as long as I'm alive. And then when I'm dead, it's gone. That's what I would personally be a fan of.
I think that makes more sense. I think, though, that there needs to be a very clear understanding between the rights holders as well as creatives. What is considered fair use? And I think that, honestly, the idea that you have to have a piece of paper for every fucking thing in your movie, and that you need to purchase insurance because of threat of a lawsuit. I mean, I've heard of people who have a harder time getting distribution for a movie because they might not have a piece of paper for every little piece of thing in that film. Whereas if you go to Europe, and they have actually said lawsuits are less over this sort of thing, and it's really an American thing.
Yeah, it is.
You don't necessarily have to have every piece of paper for every little thing. I think that there needs to be an understanding between content owners, between creatives, between distribution companies, between all parties, that if you're going to go ahead and you're going to push for a copyright infringement, like you go ahead and cease and desist, or if you're going to take it to court, you open yourself up also to a lawsuit if you're wrong. Yeah. Like, that's, I think, the biggest deterrent, is that fair use is considered a defense. It's not considered an offensive measure. I think it's the same thing with people getting takedown notices on YouTube. I think there needs to be penalties for the people who put these fraudulent, or claims, they put these, hair trigger, cease and desist letters out there without even looking at the content. And freaking out the filmmaker, forcing them to go ahead and curtail their creative thought because they're afraid of a lawsuit, even if it is a matter of, you're just sending it out because you have to defend the rights. I think that there needs to be a very clear-cut understanding of what is fair use, what can be used, what you can do with it, without having the constant sort of Damocles over your head that you could be sued for anything if you decide to make a movie. Like, that's my biggest problem. Is that it isn't clear right now.
Absolutely, it's not.
So, I definitely agree that there needs to be copyright. I think artists deserve to get paid for the work that they do. I think it should be easier to get paid and get distribution. But at the same time, I think the current system we have is just not fucking working.
No, it's too... I don't know how to say it, but you're right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's got problems. I can't exactly say what the fix is, but... it's a mix of a lot of this stuff. Definitely.
Well, Steve, it's been great having you on the show. Do you want to go ahead and plug where people can find information about Silver Spotlight and CarousHELL?
Yes, please. If you would like to check out my films, trailers, buy the films, it's just at silverspotlightfilms.com. Simple as that. You can find all the films on there, including Captain Z. Or everyone's site, even though they have distribution, I have links to the Amazon pages through that. If you want to keep up to date on the news for Silver Spotlight, especially for CarousHELL, because I keep on posting cast pictures, and there's going to be more pictures from the shoot itself on the Facebook page, and that's facebook.com/silverspotlightfilms. And if you ever want to just look at me in spandex, you can go to facebook.com/theamazingspidersteve and check out that ass, which is an acronym for Amazing Spider Steve. There's nothing. Get your mind out of the gutter.
Well, they're gonna have their mind in the gutter, and they might be stalking you at the next convention.
Hey, it happens all the time. I clean up at conventions. Spandex, handsome, know how to talk to women. You know what that equals?
Splooge.
There you go.
All right, Steve. Well, it was great talking to you. We'll bring you on again when CarousHELL is wrapped, so you can do like.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. This was always fun.
Well, thanks again to Steve Rudzinski for coming on to the show. It's really great to reconnect with a talented filmmaker like him, and I'm really a big fan of his work. He really has come a long way in the 4 years that I've known him. Well, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at Psycho Show. If you have a favorite movie you would like us to review or a question you want to pose to us, you can contact us at cinemapsychoshow@gmail.com. And be sure to subscribe to catch our next show, available every Friday. For John and Elaine, who aren't here, I'm Brian Connaughton, and have a great weekend.